So I am really, really excited to be here. I am Western Washington born and raised. I started volunteering in shelters when I was 9 years old, washing dog bowls, and I've worked in the animal welfare industry for the past 13 years. So all my animals are adopted from Washington animal shelters, and I just feel very privileged to get to speak with you guys. I'm here with Found Animals. I see a lot of you looking at me like, who the heck is Found Animals? It's a great name, right? You like to find animals. Found Animals is a nonprofit organization. We are focused on several things, most importantly getting pets in homes to keep them there. So today I am here to talk to you about our microchips. That is the heart of what we do. The heart of what we do is actually our registry, but to make that work, we all need microchips to do it. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the basics of microchips. I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with what a microchip is, how it works, but I'm going to start at ground zero, quickly review some of the basics about microchips and how they're meant to reunite pets. I'm also going to talk about the challenges. It seems like a really simple thing, and this industry has been around for a long time. There's some challenges going on right now, and Found Animals is here to try to help solve that problem. And so I want to kind of help outline the frustrations and struggles we hear from animal welfare folks every day when we start talking about microchips. Obviously, I'm going to talk about us and the solutions we offer. I'm pretty excited about what our offer is. I think we have some special benefits, and I think they will help get pets home. So I want to share that information. And then I want to leave you guys with just a couple best practices. Bill touched on them already, but I think it's really important that regardless of what your microchip program is, what chips you're using, any of that sort of stuff, there's a couple things that are really, really important to know and hear over and over again, so I'm going to keep saying it every time you see me. Before we dive into that very exciting agenda, I can see the thrill in everybody's eyes. Like I said, we're a nonprofit organization. We were founded by Dr. Gary Michelson after Hurricane Katrina. He was a cardiologist who run it with a little too much money, he decided. He's been a pet lover his entire life and was devastated by seeing all those animals at home. It aligns really well with me because I did rescue work in New Orleans after Katrina. So seeing that, he wanted to help solve the problem, and he founded our registry and our microchip program back about 10 years ago. It's really focused on the belief that every pet should be able to get home safely, and microchips, he felt, was the way to do that. To make this possible, what we do is we offer low-cost microchips, and we offer a registry that is always free. No cost to register pets, no cost to transfer pets, no cost to update your pet information. We want to remove the barriers and make it always accessible for pets to get home. So we do have, much like our friends at Pet Health, a couple names that you will see out there. Found Animals Registry, this is our microchips. This is who I'm here talking to you about today. We do have a Michelson Prize and Grants arm of our organization. That is $75 million he set aside to fund research to find a one-stop spay-neuter solution. So he's funding grants. Whoever can figure it out first gets $25 million. That's what we all love to hear about. Every time we go in the office, there's some crazy stuff happening in that field. And then finally, we have an arm called Adopt and Shop. We are testing models of pulling animals from high-kill areas into low-kill areas to adopt them out, and blending that with the retail model. It's something that's been, it's not a brand new idea. A lot of animal welfare organizations have tried it, and we're trying to do it in a way that actually can stand on its own and become its own thing. Again, all funded by our nonprofit, so any money made at Adopt and Shop goes back into the animals. But we're testing out these models to make that more accessible across the country. Again, getting animals home. So that's who we are. You'll see we have lots of cute little, we call these guys our critters. We have lots of fun with them, so I think you enjoy our critters throughout the presentation. But let's start with the basics of microchips. Just to give everybody a reference, I'm sure we've probably all seen them. This is a cute little kitty, probably getting ready for spay or neuter surgery, looks about that age. This is our microchip. This is a standard size microchip. They are about the size of a grain of rice. They hold a small piece of technology that when a scanner passes over it, gives us a unique number. So this is the piece of technology that we're relying on getting all of these pets home. They work. Lost dogs are 2.5 to 2.4 times more likely to get home with a microchip. cats, and I will just be straight up front. I'm a crazy cat lady. I have 3 cats at home. So, always my favorite. Probably have their hair in my pants. Cats are over 21 times more likely to get home with microchips. So Dr. Michelson was right. This works if it's done right. They are part of one system, though. So you have your microchip. That relies on the pet professional. I apologize. It's like it's doing a little bit of funny stuff here. This is a pet professional. This is you guys. It relies on you guys to implant microchips. It relies on you guys to educate owners that the pets have them or they need to go get them. The system also relies on the pet owner to register that chip, to keep that registry up to date. So 5 years from now, when that dog gets lost, they don't call where they lived 5 years ago. They call them now. And it relies on scanners. So if that pet does walk back through your door, you can read that chip reliably, and you can find out the information that's current in that registry and get that pet back to that pet owner. So this is a system I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with. The other part of microchips is the challenges that we face with that system. So it seems pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Put a chip in a pet, give it to the owner registers it, you scan it, you get it back home. There are some things that have kind of gotten messy, as things often do. The first one that we're going to talk about is frequencies. There are lots of things going on with chips and frequencies, and it's important to know what they are. I promise I will not quiz you on this. I will not show up at your shelter next week and say, can you recite the frequencies? But you hear a lot of words dropped about frequencies, about ISO standard, about universal, about mini chips. It's important to know what those are. And then there's what we like to call, at Found Animals, microchip madness. So we're going to talk about those challenges pretty quickly. First thing is frequencies. In the US, there are 3 main frequencies. We're starting to see a few more with the chips that are coming over from places like Korea and Japan and all that fun stuff. But the main frequencies you're going to see out there are 125, 128, and 134.2. I have 134.2 circled because that is what is called the ISO standard, International Standards Organization. That is the chip that is recommended by the American and Canadian Veterinary Association. It's recommended by AHA. It's recommended by HSUS. Basically, everybody out there says that this is the frequency we should be using. It's also the chip that's used internationally in countries that are rabies free. So if anybody's ever moving to England or Hawaii, they have to have one of these chips in the animal before any of the vaccinations even count for the vaccines. Doesn't seem like it really matters. But the thing is, these frequencies are different languages in the world of microchips. This chip is talking a different language than that chip is talking. And most everybody, like I said, is using the ISO standard now. That wasn't always the case. We still have some folks who aren't. We have folks who in the past didn't. ISO standard is something that's really come on the market recently. So you will see pets with all of these chip frequencies. And like I said, they're different languages. So the issue that provides is that, sorry, that's the wrong button, is that not all scanners read all chips. So a lot of people ask me, well, is this a universal chip? There's no such thing as a universal chip. It's the scanner. Can the scanner speak the language of all of the chips out there? Because the chip doesn't matter. It's only speaking its own language. That's all it can do. So not all scanners read all chips. There's a lot of scanners. You probably all have different scanners in your shelter. You probably have some you got last year. You probably have some that have somehow survived and not walked away over the past 5 or 10 years. They don't all read all chips. And so if you don't have a scanner that reads all the frequencies, you're going to be missing chips. So a universal scanner, again, reads all of these frequencies. The non-universal scanners, you're missing pets. The one other problem with the different frequency of chips is that the strength of read is different. So if you're used to most of your pets coming through with an ISO standard chip, and you're used to doing a quick scan and it coming up, if they have a 128, that chip is going to take up to 3 times as long for that scanner to read it. I mean, we're talking in tenths of seconds, so it doesn't seem that long, but if you're scanning and used to doing this, and you actually have to be doing this to catch a chip, it becomes an issue. And so that's when we start to hear things like, well, the scanner only works sometimes. It's universal, but it only works sometimes. That's because it's the frequency rate speaker. That's a known issue with some of the micro or nano chips. So knowing that these frequencies exist, knowing that the scanners are the part that need to be universal is a big part of what will resolve some of the challenges, but that's one of the big challenges out there. The other challenge is what we like to call microchip madness. So, as Bill mentioned, they have a great registry. So do we. There are a lot of great registries out there. My registry is not going to tell him if your pet is registered with me, though. People assume how it works is if you have a found animals chip, you register with found animals. If you have a 24 pet watch, you register with them, which is great and fine. We do, pretty much everyone out there does cross-register chips. So my chip could be registered with any of these folks. Any of these other folks could be registered with me. So when I was a vet tech, we would scan the chip and we would say, oh, this is star 3, number star 3. This is an Avid chip. I call Avid, find out if it's registered. That's not actually the case, because that Avid chip can be up here with home again. So it's kind of madness to try to figure out where the chip is registered. And for the owner to know, where are all my chips registered? I have 3 adopted cats. They come from different organizations. They have different brands of chips. Where are all my chips registered? Who do I call when I move? What's the deal here? So all of these things become confusing, both for animal shelters and pet owners. And this is where it starts to break down with microchips. It becomes a hassle to explain. It becomes a hassle to track down. It becomes a hassle to remember. So, to make it worse, everybody charges different things and does different things in their registry. I mentioned before, ours is free, always free. We think that's really important. Other registries have different structures and different plans, and it varies because sometimes they have benefits if the pet is adopted in a shelter that's using your chips or that sort of stuff. This information is just pulled off of the organization's publications and websites. But as you can see, for a new pet owner, again, if I have a home again chip and an Avid chip, and I need to update my information, all of a sudden I'm having to pay for some and not for others. And as an owner, that becomes a barrier. I'm not going to want to do that. These guys are some of my favorite critters. They've just been new. So our solutions are pretty simple. That's our goal. We want to make this simple. So our offer comes back to this slide, which I apologize again, the text is being funny, but it's about making the system work. The first way to make the system work, $4.95 microchips. That's our standard pricing. Like I said, standard pricing. Sometimes you negotiate different deals. But we want microchips to be affordable. We want shelters to be able to afford to actually implant a microchip. Because we know you guys are rolling in the dough. You know, we figure we better make them affordable. We want owners to be able to afford to have their pet microchip. Again, keeping it affordable. The second way we help make the system work is that always free registry. I will say that a million times. I think it is very, very important. There are no costs ever. Whether you're using our branded chip, some other branded chip, I don't care. Get them registered. It's never going to charge you to do it. It's never going to charge you to transfer it. It's never going to charge you to update your information. That will help owners keep their data up to date. The final way is we also offer low-cost universal scanners. We want to make sure when these pets walk through your doors, you can read the chips, and you can afford the technology to do that. So we distribute our scanners. They're produced by Datamars, which is a fantastic company. They make great technology. We distribute them basically at cost to make sure that this whole system can work and that barriers can be removed from it. We also have a couple cool features about our registry. We're just in the process of launching a whole new website, so I really like to brag about these really cool new features. Some of them aren't new, they're just better than they were before. But the first one is what we like to call batch uploads. This is specifically for you guys, based on feedback from you guys. It is a process where your team gives us a file, we put it into our importer, and we process and register all of the pets. So you don't have to register individual chips. If it's not already happening through your software, all you have to do is give me an Excel file, and I register them all. And then when they're all registered, we send the pet owners an email saying, hey, great, your pet's registered. Here's how you update your info and keep in contact with us. And then about once a year, we send them an email just saying, hey, just want to make sure all of your info is still the same. We're never going to market to them. We're not going to harass them. We will every month, like I said, about once a year, just to remind them that we need that info current. But this batch upload can save a huge amount of time and can also prevent a huge amount of data errors because you can pull directly from your software system usually to produce that Excel file. It's a very handy feature. The second one is again based on feedback from animal rescue organizations. We have what we call permanent rescue contact, or PRC. What this means is you have the option as a shelter or as a rescue organization to stay attached to that microchip for the lifetime of that pet. It's not something the owner sees. It's not something the owner can change. But in our communications, if that pet were ever found in our found pet cascade of alerts, you are always tied as the organization that pet was adopted from. So you'll be notified that, hey, by the way, this pet was found. We've seen it work many times where the owners have moved and not updated their data, but maybe they've adopted another pet from the shelter. Or the owner was never found and the shelter was able to say, hey, no, we invested a lot in this animal, we'll take it back in and re-adopt it back out. It is, like I said, not something they can ever see. It's not something they can ever remove. And it's something that still allows the owners to have the full features of our registry. What was happening before was a lot of organizations were worried that the owners weren't going to keep their registry up to date. So they either kept the pets registered just to the shelter, or they listed themselves as a secondary contact. This way, the shelter is always attached, but the owner can list themselves as primary. The owner can list them their own emergency contacts, their own secondary contacts. The owner can still list their vets and all of that stuff. So they have full functionality of the registry, and there's a safety net. So it's an optional feature, it's not required. We have folks who don't want it, and that's fine. But we have folks who do, and so it exists. And then, like I said, that ties into our found pet alert system. So again, this is part of our free registry, no cost. To kick this off, if a pet is ever found with a chip in our registry, anyone can go to our website and type in that chip number and hit start found pet alerts. What's going to happen is for 4 days, we're going to reach out and contact every contact we have on that file. That pet owner is going to call, text, and email every single day saying, hey, Fluffy's been found and this is where Fluffy is, or this is who has Fluffy. Emergency contact is going to get contacted on days 2, 3, and 4. Rescue group, so our permanent rescue contact, if they have a veterinary contact, all of these folks are getting contacted in the cascade. And at the very end of the process, if that found pet alert has not been turned off by a shelter or a pet owner, we're going to contact whoever manufactured that chip so that they can go into their database and track down who, what information they have associated with that chip, do what they can to get the pet home. This found pet alert is really thorough. It's designed to work in a time frame that fits within straight hold periods. So if a pet hits your doors and you kick this off, hopefully that pet's gotten home before they even get through that hold period. We have added a little more robust contact options now, so there are even more folks that the owner can choose to add if they would like to have contacted. But those are some of the features that kind of make our registry unique, in addition to our approach and the fact that we're nonprofits. But all of that said, again, I think everyone in the room can agree that pets being microchipped, microchips being registered, is the most important thing. And so I want to leave you guys with a couple best practices. We talked about scanners. We talked about how they're not all reading all chips. Make sure your scanners are universal. If they're not, one of these pets who might walk through your door might not get home. Can't read the chip. So make sure to test your scanners. If you don't know if your scanners are universal, talk to me. I will help you test your scanners. It's very, very important. Also, in general, test your scanners. As batteries die, they don't read as well. Sometimes they have technology issues depending upon the brand. Sometimes they have updates. Test your scanners every once in a while. And again, if you have any questions on how to do that or easy ways to do that, talk to me. I'm happy to let you know. And then, this was mentioned earlier, this is the AHA microchip lookup tool. This is run completely by AHA, has nothing, none of the microchip companies financially have their fingers in this tool. Almost all of the microchip companies participate in this tool. If you have a pet whose chip you're looking up, this is the place you should go, petmicrochiplookup.org. What's going to happen when you go to this website is it's going to give you a list of every registry this chip has ever been registered with and when it was registered. So if it is registered with me and with Avid and with 24 Pet Watch, you'll know who has the most recent info, so you'll know who to go to most likely get this pet home. So always, if you don't listen to anything else or remember anything else, please, if you're not doing this, make sure you're doing this. If you are doing this, remind everybody in your organization you're doing this, because this website makes a huge difference. And with that, this is my handsome man, Aiden. He likes to help with lots of things, so I thought I'd like to help with this. I think I am just about out of time, but I handed you guys all some information about us. If you unfold that brochure on the back of it, there's a great poster just reminding people microchips are not GPSs. Feel free to type that up in your login. I do have stacked of cards, so I will just move over here.